Look at you getting snippy. All right, listen to you.
I'd rather fuck with Jordan for a while, though.
Yeah, this guy laying down the hammer. All right. Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the No House Advantage Strategy Show, NBA edition. Football is over. God, that sucked. But we're here. We're here talking basketball. And then we've got only 4 days, including today, until the All-Star break. Anyway, I'm Dave Loughran at Lafayette_D, joined by Greg Ehrenberg. I'll save you the pleasantries. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. And of course, if you haven't checked out No House Advantage yet, and you just somehow stumbled upon this, oddly enough, very simple. We're going to show you how to play the right way at No House Advantage using all of the free and best tools you can find over at Stokastic under the NBA drop down. You'll see it right at free tools. But joining me, Greg Ehrenberg at G Ehrenberg DFS. What's happening, man?
Yeah, not too much. I did have a bet on the Eagles last night. So I bet them a while ago. I bet them like 2 months ago to win the Super Bowl. So I didn't have quite the same rooting interest as you, because obviously diehard Eagles fan. You've got all the Philly stuff in your background there. But the end of the game, yeah, it left a little bit of a blue ball feeling. It was just a disappointing ending after it was a great game.
That's what it came down to. Like, everyone's calling, there's so many people like, oh, you're such a homer. It's like, obviously I wanted them to win, but wouldn't that game have been much better if like you let go of a foul that happened all throughout the game, didn't call, and then there's an attempt to drive down the field and either tie it and bring it to over. I don't know. It is what it is. Congrats to Chiefs fans. Fun game, no less. From a prop perspective, I had a great day. It's not the same when you go home empty as far as your fandom goes. But we got some good stuff today. I don't think there's any. Like, sometimes we have absolute smash spots when we're building these pick 'em lineups. Do you see anything that's just an absolute can't miss smash that we sometimes get?
We've got some of them here. Some of like the Michael Porter Jr. props look pretty out of line. But yeah, it's not like we've got that many things that are like, oh, this is like a 7% outcome or whatever. We've got, and by the way, it's still super likely. We've got one prop here north of 90%, but it's not like an abundance of them like we normally see, and certainly nothing like if you guys were playing on NHA last night, the over-under for Patrick Mahomes passing yards. Did you see what that number was for the
1,000 and a half?
Yeah, and the half came in really in handy because he finished with 182. So that was nice. But yeah, I mean, that was the easiest way anybody could have made money on the Super Bowl yesterday was just playing NHA props against the house, going under 1,000.5 passing yards for Pat Mahomes.
There were some great ones, though. There were some really good ones. Even outside of the free square, there were some really nice ones. So we'll get into pick 'em. We'll look at some versus the house stuff as well. That's where you 21 extra entry if you hit all 5 of your picks. And then, of course, when you're talking pick 'em, you're playing against the field for cold, hard cash. There's massive overlay every day. And the ones you like the most go at the top. You're just taking props over or under, no juice on either side, no salary cap. The ones you like the most go at the top. They get the most points. There's a little strategy baked into that as well. The ones you're least confident in go at the bottom. They get the fewest points. 11-game slate today. We shouldn't have too much of a shortage of options here. So let's dive into this, man. I'll defer to you on the first one. We're looking at, we'll do some pick 'em stuff first. We'll build it out. I'm not sure if we get to 10 picks, but we'll do our favorites here and then look at a little versus the house. Where do you want to start?
I mean, you mentioned it before that there aren't that many relative to other slates where we have like 98% chance of winning or anything like that in our projections, but it's pretty hard to look past Michael Porter Jr. And you let me go first, which I feel like is kind of like cheating because this one projects out so much better.
Well, I went first on the deeper dive yesterday.
Okay.
It took Patrick Mahomes under 1,000 passing yards. So
all right, fair enough.
This is nothing compared to that.
So, I mean, but we look at Michael Porter Jr.'s over under for assists is 2.5. We've got him projected for 1 flat in our projections. And, look at the numbers for Michael Porter Jr., especially as of late. So last game, he had 2 assists. It was his first game with multiple assists since January 13th against the Lakers. We went about a month without having multiple assists in a game, and we didn't get to 3 to hit this line. For the entire season, let's see, how many games does he have with 3 assists? 2. 2 games of the entire season where Michael Porter Jr. has had 3 assists. So we're looking at props and trying to figure out what we want to put in our, 10-point confidence level. Like, it's got to be Michael Porter Jr. It projects the best for us by far. And it should. He's played in 40 games this year, and he's hit over 2.5 assists twice.
You know what his assist rate is this season?
I assume very low based on his total assist numbers.
5%.
Pretty low.
Horrible. I like that. I think that's like, if you're talking 10, and it's funny because when you're looking at a 2.5, usually you're like, oh, there's so, you and I talked about this last time we were on the show. There's so many ways that can go wrong, but how many times did you say he's gone 3+?
Twice. So it's funny because you said his assist rate is 5%. You know, you get some of those people that are obsessed with the numbers and whatnot. His assist rate is 5%. He's also hit this exactly in 5% of his games. Coincidence? Most likely, but still worth noting.
But both of them work in our favor on this one for sure. I'm going Rudy Gobert under rebounds here. It seems like every single time No House Advantage just lays kind of hangs a massive line, talking 14.5. Now, obviously Rudy Gobert is a very skilled rebounder. There's no denying that. But going up against the slower paced Dallas team, number one. Number two, if you just go over to OddsShopper and type in Rudy Gobert's name, first week is entirely free, by the way. If you're not on OddsShopper, it's like the most valuable tool we have out there right now. OddsShopper Premium, of course. You look at it, dude, there are rebound props everywhere across the board is 10.5. And we haven't projected at 12.5. No, sorry, we haven't projected at 11.2, but every traditional book has him at 10.5. This is 14.5. We have him 84% odds to hit the under here. Again, not the best matchup that you're going to find. His minutes have been kind of odd since he's been dealing with this nagging groin injury. I think the next best bet here is Rudy Gobert under 14.5 rebounds.
Yeah, and one thing I will note about this, and by the way, I agree with you. I think that line looks good. Is Rudy Gobert is listed as questionable today. And a lot of people might think that if you play on No House Advantage, you take an under for a guy who's not in, you win automatically. Not how it works. You have to make sure the guy is active. So Rudy Gobert, I would agree with you. Definitely a good line, but just everybody be aware. Make sure that Gobert is playing. If he's not, then you have to take him out of your lineup.
Absolutely. And over his last 20, I think he's gone over this twice. Yeah, 2 times in his last 20 games. So that's a spot I'm more than willing to hammer. But yeah, good point. If just pay attention to whether or not he's active or inactive tonight. That game tips off at 8:30 Eastern time. Actually, it's the last game until the late wave of games, which is only 2:10 p.m.s. What do you got next? We got 2 in the books. Jordan, are you screen sharing this, getting these up there for us? My man. All right. I got to pull it up too. What do you got next, Greg?
Yeah. So now things get a little bit tricky because those are 2 that we have projected, fairly well. And we've got a bunch of others that are around 80% projected rate. So trying to figure out which one I like the best out of the next group of ones. And I think I'm going to go with Jabari Smith Jr. under points plus rebounds plus assists. And I'm pretty sure when you and I did this show last week, there was a bunch of Rockets unders that we liked, if I remember correctly.
We also went 9 for 10. We had a really nice day. We were 9 for 10.
That's not bad at all. It's not 100%, but it's 90%.
I mean, look, you're trying to hit 10 on this, but 90% is not bad. Yeah, it was, I think we had Şengün is the one that missed, but then we had, I think, like Eric Gordon, Jalen Green props. Yeah, we had a bunch on the Houston Rockets.
And I think this is a decent enough spot to go back, because if I remember correctly, we did have unders last week on Jabari Smith Jr. And once again, I think unders look pretty good on him. So the ones that we've projected best, these are 2 that are fairly close. We have Jabari Smith under 2.5 assists, winning about 82% of the time. And then we have the Jabari Smith points plus rebounds plus assists, winning 80.5% of the time. So the projection's fairly similar. And when they are similar, I just think there's a little bit more safety going with the PRA, just because you're getting more exposure to different numbers. I think it decreases the variance just a little bit. And, once again with Jabari Smith, and I think this is the exact same scenario that was last week, because we've got some players coming back for Houston, or at least that have been back that are not quite accounted for. Like Jalen Green plays a massive role for this team. And I don't really think this is totally taking into account that Jalen Green is back. He's playing full minutes. He takes up a whole lot of usage. So I think that's the main reason why we're looking at Jabari Smith. 26.5 points plus rebounds plus assists is the number. And we haven't projected barely over 20. So I think it's pretty good under to look at.
Yeah, 100% with you on that one. We got 3. Now, do you think a site like No House Advantage is intentionally putting out, spots that favor the under because most people like to bet the overs on spots like this? Because we usually, when we do this show, we're going to land on more unders than overs. I don't think that's coincidence.
I think a lot of it has to do with at this point in the season when players are ruled out, a lot of the projections seem to be built around what those numbers would be if those guys remained out. And then we just see players come back and the lines are still just, as if those players would be out. So like the Rocket situation last week where we had all of the unders looked very good for a bunch of players was just because we saw players coming back for Houston and the lines were still set as if they were going to be out. But I don't know. It's a good theory. I don't know exactly though.
All right. Well, I'm going to give you another under here. And this is going to be Zach Collins under 30.5 points, rebounds, and assists. Now,
we got news, by the way.
What's that?
LeBron James is out tonight. He will not play. So let's look for some so rare line. No house advantage.
Oh man.
No house advantage. I've got shows here back to back. Let's look for some no house advantage props based on Lakers players. Now they're going to look good for overs.
I like that. Let me finish my thought on this one and then get to those, because I do think this is a really good spot. Zach Collins going up against Cleveland, already a difficult matchup, right? You're talking about a guy that last game did get into foul trouble. I know Jakob Poeltl no longer in San Antonio. He's in Toronto. We saw that move at the trade deadline. But I still think this number is exceedingly high, not to mention that his points, rebounds, and assist prop over on DraftKings is 22.5. So you're looking at a pretty massive difference there for a guy who's, yes, should he play decent minutes? I think he probably should. For sure. But at the same time, like, this guy is averaging, almost 6 fouls per 36 this season. Like, foul trouble isn't just an anomaly in spots. He can find himself getting into considerable foul trouble in a game like this. We're getting it at 30.5. We're projecting him at 23.1. And he's just going up against the front court that's going to suppress rebounds, that's going to suppress easy baskets around the rim. I think this is another spot that we should be keying in on. Zach Collins under points, rebounds, and assists at 30.5.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot too. And the other thing too is, like, who even knows what the Spurs are going to do with the rotation on a day-to-day basis? Like, there's no real need to play anybody. And also, the spread in this game is 1 million points. Could very easily be a blowout. And would he be
What's
on
it at, 15 or something?
Might even be 15.5 now. 15 flat still. But still, we try not to talk about blowouts too often, but you kind of can't avoid talking about it in that game.
Absolutely. Yeah. San Antonio on the road, really tough matchup. All right. Dig into a little bit of Lakers situation here. These are static props, so we'll see what becomes of it. Did you find anything you like?
Yeah, so I'm going through it, and a couple of things to consider just in terms of the Lakers in general. First of all, D'Angelo Russell is going to be making his this season Lakers debut. He was on the team in the past, but without LeBron James on the court this year, these are some of the numbers we've seen. Actually, I have to take... You know what actually I'm going to do? I'm going to leave Westbrook on the court looking at the on-off court numbers. And let's just say, like, all right, Westbrook is kind of a pseudo fill-in for D'Angelo Russell. I think that's a decent way to look at the on-off court numbers, is just not take Russell Westbrook off and say, like, okay, D'Angelo Russell Westbrook. It's not going to be a perfect comparison, especially because Westbrook is a higher usage guy than Russell. But it'll still give us an idea of why I like the over on Anthony Davis's points. So AD, the over-under for his points on NHA is 26.5. And if you look at the numbers this year with LeBron James off the court, and by the way, like I said, this is still including minutes played alongside Russell Westbrook. Westbrook this year, 32% usage rate when LeBron James is off the court. But Anthony Davis this year, without LeBron, 32.1% usage, and that has led to him scoring 32.22 real-life points per 36 minutes. He's also got a great matchup tonight against the Portland Trail Blazers. Should be really fast-paced. Should be a lot of points scored in that game. The total is at 238.5. That's actually the highest total of any game on the entire slate tonight. So with that in mind, and the additional usage that AD has seen this year without LeBron on the court, I really do like the over on his points.
Where do you think you would put this as far as a priority?
It's not as good as like the Porter or anything, but it's pretty good for like a 7 or 6 pointer.
All right. So just looking at this a little bit further here, hold on, let me pull something up here. You can search stuff. And by the way, if you guys haven't signed up yet, like I said, you just ended up here somehow, links in the description. Jordan can throw it in the chat too. All of our tools are free for the Pick 'em. We have the optimal lineups as well. uh, optimal lineups, which is awesome. Gives you a list of optimal lineups for this. And you have the versus the house props that we'll get into in a minute here after we get through a couple more of these. But yeah, it's awesome. And $100 up to $100 first match deposit bonus. So if you deposit 100, you look at your account, it's going to say 200 after that. Pretty good stuff. So all of our tools are entirely free. 100% deposit bonus up to $100. No reason not to be playing over there if no house advantage is available to you. All right. So do you see anything else as you're looking through this for the Lakers, or is it mostly just Anthony Davis over on props?
Yeah, let's look through some of the other players. So as of right now, we don't have anything on D'Angelo Russell. There's nothing there. How about Dennis Schroeder? There's nothing for Schroeder. Hachimura. Yeah, it looks like AD is the only player that there are props there for. So that's going to be the only guy we have to talk about because he's the only one.
Okay. Let's dig a little further in here. I like to take a look at some overs just because, if we're going down the list of unders, you have a decent amount that are going to be pulling really nice numbers here, and we can get into a couple more of those. But from an over standpoint, I'm not sure there's anything that really jumps off the page. Of course, LeBron over assists is off the board now, so that's not an option. Vucevic over 2.5 assists is interesting to me. What do you make of Vuce over 2.5 assists today?
Yeah, so in our projections right now for Vooch, we've got him sitting at 4 assists. So we're looking way over on that. Let's look at some of the recent games for Vooch and what's going on, and taking on the Orlando Magic. And I've liked watching Magic games this year. They've been much better as of late, just as a team that's competed. They've kept a lot of games competitive when we otherwise thought they wouldn't. But a really consistently high assist numbers for Vooch. If we go back to January 26th, since that game, he's had 4 or more assists in all but one game. The only game he fell short was a game against the Nets. The other thing, too, about Vooch, this doesn't happen with basically any other big man. Never gets into foul trouble. Never, ever do we see Vooch in foul trouble. So this season, he has had more than 4 personal fouls twice. And still in one of those games, one of them was a blowout, so we didn't have to lose any playing time, at least relative to the foul trouble. The other one where he picked up 5 personal fouls, he still played 37 minutes. So something that kind of helps Vooch's counting stats relative to a lot of other centers. You're getting the 36, 37 minutes out of him, barring a blow, which I don't think is going to happen because the Magic have been so competitive this year. And he just doesn't really foul all that often. And once again, you look at some of these recent games, 4 assists against the Cavs, 6 against Memphis, 4, 4, 6, 4, 6. He has really consistently been 4 or more. And the number isn't even 3.5. It's 2.5. So I think this is really likely to hit the over.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this one today. Now, we've got a handful of them thrown in here. I want to ask you something that's a little different than what we usually do here, because I think it could be helpful if we get to a spot where later in the day, right? Like maybe you're on live before, like you're not going to be able to tweet or talk about this at the time. I'm on the deeper dive with Adam tonight. If we get to a point where some of these guys are ruled out, like some of the questionables, do you think there are any spots that we should be keeping a real close eye on in the event that they're out, and then pounce on certain spots if they are?
Oh, interesting. So let's pull up.
Yeah. And I haven't looked either. It's just kind of came to mind right now as I was looking through some of these guys that statuses are questionable, and there's a decent amount of them right now.
Yeah, so I'll just start at the top of the injury report and work my way down. Now, I know Joel Embiid's injury status has generally been fugazi. Like, we see Joel Embiid questionable in the injury report every single slate. I think this might be a time we actually see him ruled out, though. Like, if there was any spot where you give him the night off, it would be a home game against the Houston Rockets, where the 76ers just super, super likely to win this game. They're 13.5-point favorites. So I think this is a spot where we actually could see Joel Embiid sit. If that was the case, we've got Harden props. Let's see, what are his numbers here? We've got Harden for 8.5 assists, 2.5 threes, 20.5 points, 38.5 PRA. I think the over will look good on all of those. The one I would lean towards the most, though, would be Harden over 38.5 points plus rebounds plus assists in the event that Joel Embiid doesn't play. Tyrese Halliburton is questionable, but that's kind of hard to know what to make of because Miles Turner is also questionable. So when you got the 2 best players on the team that are uncertain, let's see, are there Buddy Hield props? There are no Buddy Hield props. I was going to say look at Buddy Hield ones, but not an option. Other players that are questioned, we've got CJ McCollum for New Orleans. We've got
Yeah,
Kyle
that's a big
Kuzma.
one.
Yeah, so what do we got for like
Brandon Ingram?
Valanciunas props and potentially Ingram.
Yeah, I mean, Ingram points prop is at 21.5 right now. We already have him projected at 24.5, and that's assuming that McCollum plays.
Yeah, so that already is one that I think, like you were mentioning there, something we could already consider. And then looking really quickly at the New Orleans numbers this year, if we take both Zion Williamson, who unfortunately is hurt again for an extended period of time, the dude lives on the bench behind the bench. the usage this year, no Zion Williamson and no CJ McCollum on the court. Brandon Ingram, 32.5% usage rate and scores 28.02 points per 36 minutes. So I think that that's something that would look really strong is Brandon Ingram. Yeah, the over, like you said, though, it already projects well for us. It would project even better if we were to see those guys ruled out. Kyle Kuzma is questionable. Bradley Beal. Do we have any Beal props here? Beal's another one, actually. So, Lofty, the same thing you said before about CJ McCollum relative to Brandon Ingram. We've already got Bradley Beal's over points prop looking decent. We've got him projected for 22.3. The over-under is 20.5. If Kyle Kuzma is ruled out, that points projection probably goes to like 23.5, 24. So the over there would look good. I like this prompt you brought up, going through the injury report and trying to find some of the other players that could benefit. Jamal Murray is questionable. Kyle Anderson is questionable. John Collins is questionable. Tim Hardaway Jr. is questionable. Bogdan Bogdanovic is questionable. Alex Caruso is questionable. That's not going to matter for no house advantage, but we always have to talk about Alex Caruso whenever he's on the injury report. It's part of our contracted status here. But let's look at the Hawks. Trae Young. Trae Young's assist prop is 9.5. If Trae Young, we've got 9.5 assists, 22.5 points, or 25.5 points, 41.5 PRA. If John Collins and Bogdan Bogdanovic are both ruled out, I would like really the overs on any of those. But the one I would say I would feel the best about, I'll say the over points for Trae Young. We'll go over 25.5 points if none of those guys are able to play with the Hawks being shorthanded.
Yeah, I love it. This does open a lot up, and all of these guys don't need to be out. It's just if some of them end up being out, a lot of these are early games too. So we'll see how it plays. Like you said, maybe this is the game Embiid sits. That's a 7:00 game. The Atlanta game is a 7:00 game. A lot of these games are early, are very early. So let's keep an eye on that for sure. As we get closer to lock, we'll still have plenty of time to make it happen. Before we go, though, and appreciate you guys hanging out with us, versus the house, and you had mentioned this last time you and I did the show. Versus the house, the lines are not as soft as the pick 'em at all. So do you have any strategy going into this? Of course, we have the free tools for it, but is there anything that you do differently given that the margins are a lot slimmer here when we're trying to find good spots to take?
Yeah, I still think that what you said before holds true, though. If we have something where, say, an over projects fairly well and players on the team are listed as questionable, it would make that over look even better in that kind of scenario. So just looking through some of these players now, like what is Trae Young on the, so 26.5 is the over under for points on Trae Young. The pick 'em contest, it was 25.5, so a little bit lower, but still we have Trae Young project for 27.2 points today. If we were to see John Collins and Bogdan Bogdanovic ruled out, then we're probably looking at a points projection kind of close to 30-ish for Trae Young. And if that ends up happening, where those guys are ruled out, then you've got a prop that we would already have the over that looks fairly decent in Trae Young that would have even more value. So just pay attention to the injury report. If players are ruled out, try to act quick on it. But also, there's reason to get the overs on some of these players early in the day, knowing that it's already a decent look that could look even better later.
Exactly. Yeah, it makes you wonder about guys like James Harden right now at 21.5. I wonder if look, it just like you said, find the ones that already project pretty decent without the fact that injury could play a role. Because if it does, then it goes from looking decent to being some of the best stuff. And it's not like, I'm not saying they react as quick as DraftKings to pull these lines when an injury happens, but you still want to get in early on all of this stuff. So I'm going to be paying attention to all of this and finding essentially just using the win percentage to going down the list, finding the win percentage, Greg, on the guys, not just strictly using this formula to build lineups. Like, oh, okay, he's questionable. But if I can find some of those with top win percentages, I'm plugging them in.
Yeah, no, I think we're on the same page with that. That definitely is something that I think is one of the better strategies with how you find additional value with the players who are questionable.
What is your favorite overall spot for the day that isn't, okay, ready? That is not the Aaron or Michael Porter assists?
So we talking the pick 'em here or versus?
Yeah, I'm going back to, we're going back just
Okay.
to put a bow on this, come full circle. Favorite one that is not Michael Porter assist, because I think both of us agree that right now that looks like the best spot.
I'm going to look at some of the unders for Keldon Johnson because they already project well for us. And that game is just so likely to be a blowout. We talked about how wide the spread is before 15 points. Take a Keldon Johnson under 36.5 points plus rebounds plus assists. We have him projected for 28.9 now. And then if he only plays about half the game because of a blowout, then you're probably looking at, would be a projection of like 24 or something like that.
Hey, you can follow Greg at G Ehrenberg DFS, me at Lafayette_D. Shout out to Jordan Klein for producing this one. Remember, all of the tools are free. In all seriousness, I don't even know how you'd play there without decent tools to make your life considerably easier over at No House Advantage. Whether it's the pick 'em, playing against the field, getting in on that overlay, or it's the versus the house where you need to be more consistent. You really need to have good tools and good projections in order to be successful with that, even with NBA. So check them all out, entirely free, always will be. And we got some good stuff over at OddsShopper Premium. First week's free there. If the easiest way to compare these against traditional books, you just type their name into OddsShopper Premium and boom, it pops up with everything across the board to all the books that are available to you. But we'll build out a card. I think we still have a couple to go, but we started a couple minutes late today. We'll be back for the next one, Greg and myself. I think there's one on Thursday too, for the last day of the week. Actually, I'm on Thursday. Are you on any other No House Advantage shows this
Nobody.
week?
It's a mystery. Some of the world's greatest scientists are working on it, but nobody's been able to come up with a firm conclusion yet. I'll get a message at some point.
Oh, it's both of us. Okay,
All
there
right.
you go.
There
Greg
we go.
and I'll
The
be
world's
back.
top scientist has spoken.
So let's have ourselves a good day. Deeper dive live before a lot coming up in just 45 minutes from now for an 11-game slate. And we'll see you back here for the next one. Peace.